All right, today we're going to follow a paper trail. It's a trail of deception that weaves through corporate filings and court documents, all to uncover how a simple real estate dispute in Arizona somehow spiraled into something much, much bigger. It really all kicks off with one property owner who, did everything right. He followed the rules, he paid his debts, and he still ended up trapped in a total legal nightmare. So the real question is, how does that even happen? How does a simple tax lien dispute blow up into a federal racketeering case? Well, let's dig in. So our story starts with a guy named Keith Hartl. He's a man who trusted that the system would have his back. He filed a complaint, he did everything by the book, and what did he get for it? He hit a solid brick wall. This right here, this is the official response Keith Hart got from the Arizona State Bar. He filed a complaint against an attorney, Mark Manoy, and this is what they sent back. They basically washed their hands of it, telling him, sorry, we can't get involved. So he was completely trapped, forced to find his way through the very legal maze he believed was rigged against him from the start. So how did it get to this point? Well, it started in late March 2025. Hartl gets sued over a tax lien. Okay, about a week later, he pays it, redeems it completely. Problem solved, right? That's what you'd think. But no, the attorney, Manoy, comes back and says that even though the main debt is gone, Hartl still owes him fees. And because Hartl didn't file a formal response to that in time, a court just slapped him with a judgment for thousands more. He literally paid what he owed, and somehow he ended up even deeper in debt. It makes no sense. So Hartl was stuck, completely stuck. The official channels he was supposed to trust had totally failed him. But what the court filings didn't show on the surface was a much larger story, one that was kind of hidden in plain sight. You just had to know where to look, and you had to follow the paper trail. And that's because this was never just about one man and one lawyer. Oh no, this was about a whole complex network of companies and people, all of them seemingly working together toward a common and very hidden goal. Okay, first, let's get our cast of characters straight. On one side, you've got our property owner, Keith Hartl, who also used the name Keith Thorstensen in some of his real estate deals. And on the other side, at the center of all these allegations, is this web of LLCs, all tied back to one guy, Kyle Weiloge. Now, the way this network is structured is really revealing. At the top, you have these active companies like Weiloge Holdings, kind of acting as the main hub. But then you look closer, and you see this trail of inactive, dissolved companies. Ghost companies, basically. This mix of active and dead entities all connected to the Weiloge family, well, that's not just some messy bookkeeping. It's a critical piece of the whole strategy. And right here, this is where the pattern just becomes crystal clear. This chart maps out a whole flurry of corporate filings over the years, a constant churn of companies being created, then dissolved, then amended. Legal experts actually have a name for this. They call it entity hopping, and it is a powerful way to muddy the waters, to obscure who owns what, shuffle assets around, and basically create a maze so complex that it's almost impossible to figure out who's actually responsible for anything. Okay, so now that we know who the players are, let's break down the actual transaction, the deal at the heart of this thing that triggered this entire legal war. Just watch how this unfolds in 3 very carefully timed steps. First, on April 2nd, Hartl agrees to sell his property. Simple enough. Second, we find out that 12 days before this deal, a different company filed a tax lien foreclosure against that very same property. And third, just one single day after the sale agreement is signed, the buyer, who's linked to Weiloge Holdings, cancels the whole deal. And the reason? That foreclosure threat that just conveniently popped up out of nowhere. You see, this sequence of events isn't just suspicious. It actually forms the basis for some very serious federal allegations. Each action you see here, from mail fraud to extortion, is what the law calls a predicate act. On their own, they're bad enough. But when you lay them out like this, all connected to the same people over a short span of time, it starts to paint a picture, not of a coincidence, but of a coordinated criminal plan. So when you combine this tangled corporate web, the incredibly suspicious timing of the transaction, and this clear pattern of behavior, it all starts pointing in one direction. It points towards a powerful federal law that was designed for exactly this kind of situation. And that law is the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, but everyone just calls it RICO. Now, it was originally created to take down the mob, but it applies to any group, any enterprise that engages in a pattern of criminal behavior to make a profit. And what was the end results of this alleged scheme? Well, for Keith Hartl, the cost was just staggering. His documented financial losses from lost property equity and other damages came out to more than $214,000. A RICO case is all about connecting the dots. And folks, the paper trail does exactly that. Here, we see corporate filings that place the attorney, Mark Manoyle, as the organizer of one LLC. And in another document, you see Stephen Weiloge, a key part of that Weiloge network, managing another one. This is not a coincidence. The documents prove they were both operating in the same ecosystem, creating and managing the very companies used in this whole alleged scheme. So, does this whole mess actually fit the legal definition of a RICO case? Well, let's just check the boxes. Do you have an enterprise? Yep, the Weiloge network of LLCs acting together. A pattern of racketeering. The legal analysis points to multiple alleged predicate acts. Conduct? Yeah, the key figures are all shown participating. And an injury? You bet. Over $214,000 in documented losses for Keith Hartl. You know, this one case, with all its complicated, messy details, really shines a light on a much bigger issue. An issue with the very systems we're all supposed to rely on for justice. The ultimate takeaway here, the thing to really remember, is that complexity can be used as a weapon. This web of LLCs and shell companies and confusing legal filings, it isn't just messy paperwork. In the wrong hands, it becomes a tool to completely overwhelm a regular person, making it pretty much impossible for them to fight back through normal channels. And that leaves us with a final and, honestly, a pretty crucial question. This entire case was pieced together from public documents, records that are supposed to guarantee transparency. But what happens when that same paper trail reveals a system that can be twisted for profit at any cost? What happens when the very rules that were designed to protect us become the bars of a cage?